Good morning everyone, Titus here for part 6 of our Qbert mini-series, and in this video we'll work on creating the death code for our player character. This will also allow us to set up our life system, which was the last element on our HUD system. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, there's a few ways to do your death code. I think for this one I'm going to demonstrate a blueprint interface. So we can come into our blueprints folder, right click, create new blueprint, and choose blueprint interface. I'm going to call mine BPI underscore player death. I'm then going to open that up and I have to give it a function name. The function name I'm going to give it is just player death. Then I can compile, and that's pretty much it for the blueprint interface. So we can go ahead and close this out. They're pretty easy to set up. You can actually add multiple functions in here and then call individual ones depending on the blueprint actor or area that you're calling it from. So they're pretty flexible. With that created, let's actually set up our level. We need to add a couple things. First thing we'll need is a trigger box. I'm going to set that at 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to scale it by 20. And I'm going to unlock it and reduce the Z scale to 2. Then I'm going to come into top view. And I am going to grab and position this so it's a little bit more center. Something like that. I'm then going to come to side view. And I'm going to drag it down just to be a couple spaces down below, like somewhere around here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but around that general vicinity. And then you can adjust your perspective views through here as well. Or you can hold control and actually move your little arrow a direction if that's easier. Alright, so we got our trigger box for when Qbert falls. The next thing we're going to need is we're going to want a camera. Because when Qbert's falling, we don't want to follow him all the way down. We want to switch to a different camera in the scene. So we can go to Add, All Classes, and then just choose a basic camera actor. And then I think I will rotate it down just 10 degrees. Rotate it around, something like that maybe. Maybe somewhere around there. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's good starting off. So now that we have these two elements in, let's go to our level blueprint code. So we can click here and then open level blueprint. You can delete these two functions here. What you want to do is you want to click in and select your trigger box. And then you can right click on your level blueprint code. And then you'll notice it references the trigger box. So we can add an event for that trigger box. And we'll do a begin overlap. So on the begin overlap, I want to do a cast to Qbert. I'm not going to plug in the other actor into the object field. And then if Qbert is successful, so on the cast success here, I want to do a simple get all actors with interface. And then we're going to select the interface that we just created. And that was the player death. I can come out the out actors and do a for each loop. And then off that element, I can call player death. You want to make sure you select the player death that has the message option, because sometimes you'll see more than one. And we'll hook that up like so. And now after that, the last thing I want to do is I want to blend to that camera we made in the scene. So we'll go back to our level. We'll select the camera so it's highlighted. Come back, right click. We can create a reference to that camera actor now. And then if you drag off that, you can do set view target with blend. If it doesn't show up, uncheck the context sensitive, and then you'll see it shows up right here. And then I want to blend over 1 second. Now for the target, it's trying to do a reference to self, which in this case is level blueprint, and that's going to fail. So we need to get a reference to our player controller. You can come off here and do get player controller. And you may see the one under player state. This one will not work. If I select it and hit compile, you'll see it'll fail. The one you want to make sure you get is the game version. So get player controller. It may not show up because you don't have context sensitive checked. So you can check that. And you'll see under the game option, there's a get player controller. You'll know you have the right one when the player index option shows up, because we can actually compile that one and it will work just fine. So now with these two pieces set, this pretty much completes our level blueprint code. And if we were to play this and run this now, it's not going to work. At least I don't think it will. So if I jump off, I don't think we're going to switch off the camera. I think we're just going to follow Qbert, and we are. That's because inside Qbert, we need to set up that interface. So under the class settings, there's a interface section on the right. You want to hit add, and then you want to search for player death, and then compile and save. And now if we go back and try that jump again, it should pass and actually rotate back to the camera, which it does. Now you may notice you get some black bars on your camera viewport depending on your perspective. It might be different. You can come back to the camera actor and select it. There's a checkbox for aspect ratio, just uncheck that. And then try that again. And then it should keep the full view and just bring it back. The other thing too I noticed is sometimes when Qbert jumps, he's jumping a little bit higher than he should. That is because the player's spawn here, it's a little bit high, and it's capturing that current location really quickly. So we can just drag a slight delay, and then maybe go into a half second. Oops. Try 0.5. And that should give Qbert enough time to be impacted by gravity. So he falls down and it captures a better current location. So if you're running into that, that's probably all that was. All right, so the way we're going to handle the death code, essentially the only thing we're doing is we're just going to be doing some visual trickery, which is kind of, I guess, what you always do in game development. Essentially, we're just going to have Qbert jump off the edge, and then we're going to make him hidden. And then we're going to teleport him as he's hidden to the spawn location. And then after some time and some effects play, we'll make him visible again. And then we'll decrease our life counter. So it's just going to be, basically just going to be teleporting around the map. But we'll hide that so the player can't see it. That's effectively all we're doing to control this death state. So it's nothing too crazy. So what we can do, we'll find a blank spot here. I'm going to right click and do player death, and there's an event player death. Make sure you get the one with the little blueprint on it, because that's the one that's the message, and that's effectively the one that's going to be called when this code is run. So off that, we're going to need a few variables. One is going to be an isDead Boolean check. And the other one is going to be a spawn vector, which is basically where we want to teleport Qbert after he dies. Change that to a vector. The spawn location, we're going to be using a like a flying saucer, but that's going to be in a later video. So I think just starting off, let's put him at 0, 0, and maybe 120. And that'll just be kind of like where he is right now. He's at 0, 0, 192, so that's about right. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to come into a branch node. We're going to get a reference to isDead, so we control drag out, choose a not Boolean. So we're basically asking, make sure Qbert is not already dead. If he's not, then let's go ahead and set him to dead, like so. And And then we can get a reference to the static mesh, which is effectively Qbert. And then we can do a set hidden, and we can check the option for hiding the mesh. And then once he's hidden, we'll probably want to wait a little bit, so we'll give a little bit of a delay. So I think maybe 2 or 3 seconds will be fine. And this is just to give enough time for the cameras to blend from one another, so you're not quickly, doing that movement and kind of jarring the player around. And after that, you're going to want to teleport Qbert. So we can do set world location. And really what you want to do is you want to do it on the capsule component, because that's where everything lives for Qbert. So we can choose that, because everything's a child of that. So set world location. And then the location we want to spawn them at is going to be our spawn location that we set up earlier. And then after that, we're going to want to play some special effects. So we're going to come into a delay and let the special effects play, but we'll create those in a later video. So I'll set that for about 2 seconds for now. And then what we'll do is we'll get the static mesh again. We'll do the set hidden. We're going to set it to false this time. So we're going to bring back the mesh essentially. And then we need to update the current location to be the new location, because we teleported Qbert. So you want to hold Alt, drag into here, hook this up like so. And the way you can get the current location of where he's at is you can just drag the capsule component out and then do a get relative location, this one right here, and then just hook that into this pin here. So after Qbert teleports, you wait a bit, and then you currently set that location as the new location, so the movement code, this big stuff right here, so this still works. Otherwise that won't go through. And then after that, we want to blend back to our Qbert's camera. So what you would do is you just do a set view target with blend, but if you don't see it, just uncheck context sensitive. And then for the target, you want get player controller, but you don't want the one in player state, you want the one under game. So it looks like that. And then for the new view target, you can actually just do a reference to self. So it looks like that. And I'm going to blend back over 2 seconds. So it's going to be a little bit of a slower blend back. And then after that, we of course want to set the is dead back to false. We're going to be updating this code a bit because this will change. But for now, I think this will work just fine. So we can save and we can see what this looks like. So if I jump off the edge, Qbert disappears. We go back to the camera in the scene, and then we blend back to Qbert. And then Qbert can repeat that and just kind of jump over the edge, disappear, and he's getting teleported while he's invisible, but you're not seeing that. And then he's just ready to go again. So we'll hide a lot of these effects, or we'll hide a lot of this with special effects, so it'll look a little bit better in a later video. But that's effectively all we're doing, is we're just kind of teleporting them around. At the same time, we now need to be able to adjust our lives and adjust our HUD to reflect the new life situations, because as it is right now, he can basically just do this forever, right? So to do that, we'll want to go into our game mode. All right, and under the game mode, we of course want to set up the interface. So we can go to class settings and add the interface. It's going to be the BPI player def. Pile that. We're going to need a new variable. You probably already guessed this one. It's going to be lives, right? We need a life counter. And default, we have 3 lives. Technically 4. So Qbert has 3 life tokens, but he starts alive as well. So technically there's 4 lives. 4 chances, I guess. We'll find a blank space in here. And we're going to do the player death. Make sure you choose the event. When the event fires, basically we just need to check our lives. Is it equal to 0? If it is, if that evaluates to true, then that should be a game over, right? We don't have a game over state just yet, so we're just going to do a print string and do game over. We'll come to that in a later video. But if it's false, we want to decrease the lives. So we can do that with a function. So we can come into the functions and hit the plus sign and just call it decrease lives, right? And this is pretty simple. You can just hold control, drag this out, and you can do a minus minus, decrement the lives, hook that up like so, compile and save, and then we should be cooking with gas just with that. If I come off the false pin, I can go into decrease lives, like so. And then if I go back to Qbert, if you remember, we can make a slight adjustment here. We can drag into a branch node, and the branch check just needs to get a reference to the game mode. It needs to check lives, and then it needs to make sure that lives is not equal to 0. So we can come into a not Boolean. And if that evaluates to true, so if lives do not equal 0, then go ahead and set is dead to false. If your lives do equal 0, then we're going to leave the is dead to true, and that way Qbert will never respawn. So now if we play the game, it won't lower our life counter, but it should still give us the game over state. So that was 1, there's 2, this will be 3, and then we get one more after this. And if you look on the top left of the screen, we should see that game over state. And there it is. And the other thing is it shouldn't respawn us. So I shouldn't be able to move, which I technically still can, we gotta fix that. But you can see Qbert doesn't actually respawn. So, and then the way we're gonna fix the movement, we'll do that in a later one, but we'll adjust that down here in the movement code. So with that set, the last thing we need to do is we need to adjust our life counters on the HUD. So we can actually just probably do that from the decrease lives function, because it's pretty much already changing there anyways. So we have a reference to the player HUD. We can drag off that and get a life 1, a life 2, and a life 3. Oops. And then from these, you can actually just drag off and do set opacity. Basically, the opacity is going to make it like invisible. So it's just a little trick basically that we're doing. And then we're just going to come into 2 branches, right? So we'll do 1 branch check here, and we'll do the second branch check here. And then I can drag these out over here. The conditions are basically going to be if lives is equal to 2. If that evaluates to true, then we want to set the life number 1, which let me get the HUD back up. So we get widgets, HUD. So under the designer view, this is life 1, this is life 2, and this is life 3. So if our lives are equal to 2, then we just need to set this to be invisible. So we'll set life 1 to an opacity of 0. If lives are equal to 1, so there's only 1 life left, then we need to set life number 2 to be invisible. And then if this evaluates to false, which means lives are 0, then we also need to set life number 3 to be invisible. And just with that simple code, we should now have a way where our life counter in the bottom right corner kind of disappears. And now the player has a visual representation on how many lives they got, and you can adjust it to play differently. Like if you want it to be game over at the third one, like that's a game over state, you could do that. I guess it just kind of depends on your implementation. And then the fourth one there is the game over with this setup anyways. And then Qbert won't respawn. But all right, good people. This pretty much concludes the death code for the Qbert project, but in the next video, we'll tackle the game over and the win states so that the player can get some visual feedback on the win-loss conditions. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.